Ready?
Done. We are live. All right. So, welcome to Into the Core podcast with myself, Linda. Of course, I'm your host. And today I am joined by such a lovely lady. I want to call her a friend. I want to call her a sister. I want to call her Fam Fam. And she is just an amazing woman. Diana Opoti, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Finally, we made it happen.
Yes, Linda. And the funny thing is, we're actually neighbors, so it's very
Exactly. We like
mm,
live down the road from each other. You know, I'm walking to your place today, so just an
yes,
FYI.
no, absolutely.
Before we get into it, I usually start my intro, and I'm about to do that right now because that's just how we roll. And then we'll get straight into the questions, and just chat about everything that is happening within the fashion industry. So here we go. Into the core.
Get into it.
All good things in Africa and beyond. Into the core. Into the core. Into the core. All good things in Africa and beyond. Alrighty, so that is the intro. Kenny Allen, shout out to you. Thank you so much for making that happen. Every time I listen to it, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm so professional. Anyway, okay. Do you know what I mean? It's like so silly. All right, so Diana, shall we start from the very beginning?
this is this is usually a very interesting thing for me because I'm not sure what the beginning is in any context. But my background is actually TV production. So I'm a journalist and I created content for different shows on Mnet. And
Yeah.
because of, in fact, that's how we first met, Linda, if you remember. Because
Yes.
yes, we had come to Addis to cover the Hub of Africa Fashion Week in Addis, and I think that
Yeah,
was 2012, right?
that
Yes,
was 2012. Yeah.
yeah. So that's really what I love to do. I love to create content, and video content for me was the direction that I took for lifestyle programs.
Yeah.
So I think after a while I got tired because we kept traveling across the continent. And one time it would be a music show, then we'd go to a vineyard. Another time would be in a wine, would be doing a book reading, and then there'd be a fashion event. So I felt that, or even a cooking segment, right?
Yeah.
So I just felt that I was so, what do you, I wanted to specialize, right? Because I was all over the place, I felt. And I wanted something that would ground me. And of all the content I'd ever worked on, I think fashion for me was the most exciting. Going behind the scenes, getting a fast peek at clothes, seeing models getting dressed, talking to designers. And I'd made friends already because of the show. So I thought it would be nice to tell the stories of designers going to their studios, to them preparing for their fashion, for their latest collections. So I remember before I left the show I was working on, that was called Mashiriki Mix and Emnet, a lot like Student
Hmm.
50 in Nigeria. And I was the series producer for it. And I wrote a treatment saying that I was going to interview designers for a show. And of course, I pitched it to Emnet. And I remember the commissioning editor at the time said to me that it would be so difficult to interview creators and just listen to them. And I said, but we have so much nice footage, we go behind the scenes, but then
Mm,
just didn't bite for them. And so I knew that if I really wanted to pursue this, I'd have to I have to go out on my own. So I created a show called Designing Africa. And I remember I came back to Hub of Africa. If you remember, I traveled to South Africa for Fashion Week. I went to Lagos for Lagos Fashion Week. And yeah, and I also interviewed designers. So that was the first series for the show. I've never really liked being in front of the camera. That's a funny thing. But I was now the interviewer, and it was for me. I think 2012 to 2014 was the happiest I've ever been in my career.
You know
Because
what?
mm,
I remember when we were going back and forth between myself and Mahalet and you, and inviting you, and we were so excited. We're like, what? We're going to be featured on DSTV, Mnet, big time. We are here. We've made it. You know what I mean? We're just like, what? They're coming. They're going to feature us.
yeah,
And I remember meeting you, and one thing that really struck me was the questions that you had for us. Why we went in a certain direction, why we were doing. We had partnered then with USAID, and they were handling the exhibition, and we were making sure that we promoted designers. It was the first time we got buyers, because USAID brought in like 10 buyers, and we so disappointed them. These are the love. When I say I disappointed them, not in a
mm,
bad sense, but because it was a learning lesson. And I remember you asking, about the buyers and about the designers, just really key questions. And I think that I feel like that was at the moment where you were just like, okay, this is it. I'm getting into it, which is exactly what you just said, you know.
yeah. Yeah, because for me, that was what I wanted to do with the show. For me, fashion has never really been about looking the hottest. For me, it was about supporting local businesses, appreciation of local designers and brands, which a lot of people don't. It's not that they don't care; they just don't know, right?
Yeah,
Many, yeah, people even reference African fashion for just Ankara, right? And so
yeah,
for me, it was really important that I told the stories of the designers and the creators. And I remember that I used to get into so many different conversations about the different aesthetics and just getting people to understand that fashion was more than just looking hot, right? We've got
yeah,
such great designers who have such strong stories, and there's also a new generation of people. So what's the point of going to fashion school if you'll never practice it as a business? And
yeah,
even now, as we're running a business, we realize that banks and financial institutions don't really care for fashion, right? They
yeah,
don't. The investments that they would put in different businesses, fashion doesn't really get prioritized, right? So for me, right from the beginning with this show, it was about telling the different stories and just encouraging that whole idea that we can actually support them within. Of course, there's a population that cannot afford fast-hand clothes, so the second-hand markets have served their purpose for years. But what about local industry? Why isn't it easy for us to produce locally? Why isn't the government taking into consideration importation, local production? We're so um, our governments are prioritizing bringing in other companies from other countries than they are in local investment in manufacturing.
investing in our local, exactly.
Yeah, so whether it's the leather industry, and even case in point, if you looked at what Nigeria is doing, the whole leather industry, the textile industry, and that is just even on the manufacturing side. There's another whole component that we don't talk about when we talk about fashion, which is sustaining um, traditional ways of making textile,
Wait,
and keeping those stories. Yeah.
no, hold your thought. I was gonna say, before you even jump that far into, oh, you're just about to take it somewhere where I'm like, wait, one moment. Um, Talk to me about the difference. And I'm sorry I cut you short, but talk to me about the difference. I mean, like, because you were behind the scenes with Designing Africa, you were talking to specific designers, understanding their background. So you've got your East Africa, you've got, you were down south, you were to Lagos and the works. Tell me what the different elements are between all sectors. And for me, I'm going to ask a very personal question. Why is Kenya so behind in the fashion industry? And I say we're behind because a lot of the focus and emphasis is put between South Africa and Nigeria. Those are the go-to places. Even when it comes to models, the go-to place is Cape Town. When it comes to, and I say not just models, I mean like international models, and that's a whole other beast I'll be covering next week. But I mean, what is it that is lacking? What's your perspective in that sense of West Africa versus what's happening here in East Africa versus what's happening down south?
You touched a number of things, right? So
Yes.
if we just a little bit talked about the whole South Africa thing, I think South Africa, more so Cape Town, has a competitive advantage when it comes to the modeling and fashion shoot season, right?
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
maybe they're similar calendar. No, actually they're in the reverse, so it works a lot. It works in their favor. But the whole thing is that it comes from a history and a culture of promoting local, right? So the tourism industry doesn't make it easy for anyone, even local photographers, to shoot in our own country. Um, yeah, even if you and I were on the streets and CBD, someone would ask us why we're taking photos, and a watchman at that, right? You need
Yeah.
permits, very difficult, and even the system of getting those permits going is really it's expensive, right?
Yeah.
But so I think when it comes to shooting, shoot locations and that, it's basically how countries have set themselves up and what they're
Yeah.
selling for tourism beyond that makes it attractive for people to shoot there, plus the cost of being there. And I find that most of Africa is really expensive
Yeah.
to do business in, right? So there's
Yeah.
that. But in terms of how much local industry has grown, again, if you reference the industry setups, you know,
Mm-hmm.
our Ministry of Tourism or Trade should have allowances for designers. I mean, they should put in investment for designers to go for those big shows. They should
Yeah.
try to think of incentives to get designers to produce locally. So all the incentives go to anyone who's exporting, right? So, for example,
Yeah.
export processing zones that are tax free. Um, maybe, I mean, they're all these designated places, like the EPZ designated places, but they're all for people who are going sending products out. And those companies are not even Kenyan owned. 90% of them are foreign owned foreign investors. So I guess um, to just put it brutally, I think our governments have always been invested in foreign investment. That's where they put the highest priority, right? Secondly, I know that everyone thinks, oh, we need to have a fashion council, we need to put ourselves together. That's what's wrong with Kenya compared to other countries. But I don't think it's that. I think that even where the fashion councils have tried to exist, the red tape around doing business here is impossible, right? You pay 35% excess duty to bring in textiles. That already means the clothes are going to be expensive, right? Um, we don't have, and we haven't encouraged for a long time, local production of even in agriculture, cotton ginneries in the Kisumu region, Nyanza, all of them are closed. Now they're being reopened, but they're so old with 45 years of not running an industry, right? So I'd
Yeah.
say that, from the political business side, our governments are just not interested in textile and apparel, which is a bit of a shame because it's like one of the most basic ones for needs, right?
We used to be ahead of the game. I mean, in the 70s, 80s,
Yeah,
you
with
know.
very low,
Um, yeah. And
yeah.
now there's no emphasis that it, I mean, I do see, I'm happy that Rivertex is back, but I'm waiting for us to come to a space where locally when we're producing that it makes sense for the designers,
Mm,
which is a reason why we keep sourcing just one single tailor or or two tailors, as opposed to going into mass production and making, the apparel available to everybody, you
yeah,
know.
I just don't think the emphasis has been on local players for local consumption. And I think that
Yeah.
that needs to start rectifying. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's it's really it's very interesting. So I've been watching this show. which was about the whole South African, the South African side of the modeling and Cape Town and the works, and why we've got all those big magazines out there, your Glamour, your Cosmos, and everything. And I was like, why isn't East Africa ever being represented? But at the same time, like you said, the red tape, it makes it hard for us to do anything out here. The red tape is too much. And by the time all these amazing photographers are flying in, models are flying in and flying out, then, cost of living and the works. And I don't know,
And
for me,
Lisa, that's just one side of it, right? The
that's
reality,
one side.
there's no there's no retail environment for fashion in Kenya. It's not strong enough. We don't have,
Talk to me, explain that. There's no retail environment in Kenya. Just explain that a little bit.
I think that because of our introduction into the fashion industry, I think many people are obsessed with being a name designer or being known, right? If you go to countries
Mm-hmm.
like Nigeria and South Africa and even
Mm-hmm.
Ghana, people, if you love fashion and you want to make clothes, you just get on with it, right? You don't have to
Yeah.
be a big no. You could be
Yeah.
doing it out on the street in South C or South B. Like if you go down Kloof Street or Bree Street, um, in in Cape Town, like all these small designers exist, right? So there's a culture for making clothes and selling clothes, and there's so many different designers. And of course, there'll always be celebrity designers who stand out, right? But here, I feel like it's one or the other. So if you're either a name designer, right, who
Mm-hmm.
makes amazing clothes, but nobody has access to them because you're not in the retail model of ready to wear,
Yeah.
or exist. So it's just like, oh, I make anything from Ankara, so anything that anyone wants to make, you'll have it, right? So I just don't think that, especially in this region, enough designers take fashion seriously. So there's not enough of a retail market for you to even have a fashion magazine. For a proper fashion week that runs 3 days, like they do in Nigeria or South Africa, even in Ghana, I just don't think we have enough here. I,
Who take the business of fashion seriously? Correct?
yeah, like I just don't see enough, and I don't see enough exceptional work or enough, even if you say ready to wear, like enough for you to say I'm excited, and that's
But
just, huh?
let me ask you, when you say not exceptional enough, I mean, I've seen some really, okay, I've seen amazing brands that have come out of Kenya. But when you see, do you mean like more on the ready to wear lane versus
No, it's not,
couture and
I'm
one-off pieces, or?
there's just not enough. Like Kenya is such a significant market, right?
Yeah.
It's a East Africa hub, maybe even East and Central Africa hub for a lot of things, right? It's not enough to say I've seen a few exceptional brands from Kenya. Like Kenya should be in the tens of in the hundreds. There should be new designers coming up, right? We
Yeah.
should that's my problem. I'm not saying there's no one at all, but it's a handful of people who are serious players, right? But
Right.
an industry that cultivates a youth generation to do more, right? So I'm not
Yeah.
even interested in over the top glamour, red carpet style, or couture type clothes. That's never
Right.
been my interest. I'm static as a person, right? So even just ready to wear pieces that you don't overthink before buying. And that's why fashion wear is so expensive, so people are not buying it, because why are you going to buy a normal white shirt for $200, right? And
Right.
yeah. So this is the thing. I just don't think there are enough people taking it seriously enough. I don't think we have a proper retail infrastructure that even listens to designers. We would pay rent in malls the same as any international player. The rent is the same. There are not enough
Yeah.
incentives to encourage. So there's on one part, there's the challenges that designers face money. I'm sure that's a very big consideration. But I also don't think the industry cares enough to promote and encourage the growth of young business. So it's
I would,
almost,
you know what, I would be so encouraged to find a mall and I say this because I love this mall, but like a mall like Roslyn, sorry, I'm like, you with your, I don't know if it was a motorbike or anyway. So I would be encouraged because like a mall like for me, like Roslyn Riviera Mall, in terms of shopping space, and this is not, I'm not pushing this out there like this, but it's one of the malls for me that I love, right? Because it's small, it's quaint, it's got character to it. For me, it gives me California vibes. Maybe it's the color, maybe it's the openness, and then it's got its cute little courtyard. And I would love to see a mall, and this is maybe a challenge for the retail industry, but I'd love to see a mall that comes up that supports local designers, gives them a space to have their shops. Imagine what imagine and I'm saying in hindsight, imagine having all these tourists who come into the country and then they're being led to, oh, if you want to see all these Kenyan brands, they're all in this beautiful mall, they're all here, you could go in and you're learning about all the different brands that are coming out of Kenya. You just never know, like you'd be changing the scope and the dynamic of what it means to shop in Kenya. I mean, you know what I mean, as opposed to
I hear you, Linda. And to be fair, the mall I'm in, Village Market, does that a lot. I think it has the highest population of independent owned brands.
that is true. So
Yeah.
kudos to Village Market.
Yeah, but then that's one mall in this big city. Like
Yeah.
what I'm just trying to say with this whole thing is that not enough is being done to encourage the fashion industry. It's not enough. It's always like, oh, there's always this token person who's doing something great, right? Oh,
Yeah.
then there's always this one. It should be competition for you to get better, right? So even to go back to your first question where you asked, is it when I said exceptional enough? I mean, a proper brand story. There's a brand called 100 Years, and it just sells shirts. It started off
Yeah.
as for men.
I love their stuff. Yeah.
Yes. You see, that's like a brand. So it's one of the simplest things. We're not even comparing it to a Nyambo Bimbo Wendell. But you see, it's the most basic brand, but it's the most complete in the story as well in terms of, that's a go-to shop brand, right? And I feel
Yeah.
like not enough is being done in a serious enough way for us to talk about the Kenya fashion industry. And I think there's lots of strides. There's great brands that keep coming up. But then again, the balance is always off for me. So we've got 10 great designers who are local, and then 10 foreign designers or 20 foreign designers playing in the same market. So I feel like, and I always have this conversation with a friend of mine, that we just take, everyone can just do business in our market, right?
Yeah.
So we don't protect designers, we don't protect the industry, there's almost, like Linda, it would be nice if you could just name 10 top brands, just top of your head. 10
You know
top-
what? It's so funny because that's exactly what I was just putting down. I literally was putting name brands that are ready to wear. I mean, wow. Yeah, let me go for it. Peggy O. I love the stuff that she's doing right now with the shirt dresses and everything. For me, it's just like, are you wearing a Peggy O? Oh, I hate you. I love you, Peggy. So there's Peggy.
Can people watch this interview live?
Yes.
Or how?
We are live we're on YouTube. Go to Into the Core podcast. We are live on Facebook at The Core Fashion Kenya, at Into the Core podcast.
Yeah, all right, cool. Yeah. Sorry.
And it will be available also on YouTube. If the more comments we get, the more we can continue even the conversation after this. We can come back and we can keep talking about it. But okay, wait. Name top. Okay, so wait. Let's be fair. Katungulu, Peggy O, ready to wear. Itikadi, Deepa Dosaja, because she's got her ready to wear line. What is it called? What is it called?
I like that we have names. There's Fiona K. There's Icon Live. But this is the thing.
They're not enough. I see where you're coming from. As in, they should be flowing from our mouths,
Yeah.
like
You should
easily.
putting them in aesthetics. You want something luxury there. You want anyway, but that's not the thing. I love my country, but I'm just saying that a lot more attention could be given to
Yeah,
developing proper brands and
yeah,
yeah, just beyond the craft shows, beyond the pop-ups that happen, right? Um,
hmm
yeah, and then that will encourage manufacturing and production, you know? So yeah,
Do you
um,
think we need breaks when it comes to manufacturing and production in Kenya? I remember, I know that Tracy Kabata, who you also know, she's into production, and it's not the easiest thing. I mean, by the time, you know, the cost out here of producing is so expensive. And I really feel that there needs to be a break in order to see something significant, a good shakeup within the industry to allow designers to actually produce. I mean,
but that's
and
so to that's really what I was going. I meant rather when
yeah,
I was talking about
gotcha.
those things, right? Um,
Yeah,
who's producing here? There's three producers who produce for designers, which means all designers are producing piecemeal, which is also great for a small community and a local economy because then
yeah,
it's job creation. But if we're talking about being able to, say, be on an online platform that can sell your stuff across the African market, for example, then we should be talking about numbers and production, right? And
yeah.
to go back to the original point, which was the government is more has more incentives or breaks for people who are producing for export. So
Mm.
all the EPZ zones, right? It's tax free. It's this. I'm sure even the electricity is regulated because one of the most expensive things about producing here is the cost of electricity,
Yeah.
right? So yes, there could be breaks. There should be areas where young designers um, could produce, or have little
Yeah.
hubs. Um, yeah, they definitely. Yeah, I think the thing is, if we talk about policy, um, I
That's a
think
whole other different fight.
yeah, and then there's a permanent wish list that everyone in the fashion council has proposed before. All those people, all of the past generations of designers who've always pushed for this agenda. I feel like there's already a wish list. It's just
Yeah.
action. Yeah.
It's I would love, um I know that the fashion council is out there, and I know that there's talks behind the talks behind the talks. You know, things are being pushed, but I mean, the foot really needs to be put down on the government, like a solid foot and a solid kick into government and policy, and really an outcry from our local designers who need to show up and show out and show the government. I remember I went for this. Let me just call it out. So we went for the ADB Fashionomics. That was interesting. So we went for Fashionomics, and there was a representative from the Ministry of Trade, and the guy was just like, "Oh, there's designers, there's local designers. What do you mean? You people, you guys are manufacturing. I don't see your things anywhere." And you're just like, "Oh my gosh!" As in, for me, I was like, how do you show up to Fashionomics and you have no idea about the fashion industry? It is impossible, And I remember, like, the whole room was, people were so vexed by that show of lack of knowledge for our fashion industry. And that's why I'm saying somebody really needs to put the foot down. Representation, showing up to meetings and everything, all that great stuff, that's good and dandy, but guys need to show up and show out. I don't know if I might be causing a riot here, but I'm not. All I'm just trying to say is, if we're going to represent all the way, but let me not,
No, I do like on that one. But I always feel like every so often there's an interest in the fashion industry by really big players,
mm,
and And then something just doesn't follow through. And I'm not sure if it's the size of the industry or if
Yeah.
the well compared to other markets where fashionomics did well in, I think it took
They
some
did
time,
well.
yeah, in different countries, right? Because I remember they took some designers to New York Fashion Week. I remember Lagos as well when I was there. Too. There were some designers from Ethiopia. So most of these platforms work, but I wonder if the challenge is again back coming back to it is the way the designers here are forced to operate or the way we're used to operating, so it's not significant enough. So what's the point of
Yeah.
them the trade show when they don't have the capacity to fulfill on orders, you know, or even to show up for that trade show? So yeah, so I guess that's a whole other, yeah, we can do
It's a
like no, but I think
so
it needs
talk
to
to
be,
me.
huh? Yeah,
So I no, it really is a whole other different beast to just yeah, how they're forced to work out here, and they can't even produce. I mean, and if you can produce, it's to capacity, and then oh gosh, and then when you start thinking about sourcing of textiles, oh my gosh, that's a whole other. Anyway, guy is for like hanging on to dear life because just getting the materials to come in and the taxes that you pay for it coming in, and then by the time you're costing it out, we
yeah,
need breaks. That's the truth. We definitely need the breaks. Um, in regards to having a different perspective and you starting the designing collective, designing Africa, your store. Um, um, how has that process been? Because you've gone into creating a concept store, selling brands from all over Africa, supporting even local brands. How has that been? How's the journey been? Because every time I walk in, I come to your store, I'm always just like, oh my gosh, beautiful. But how has that journey been for you?
um, I I don't know. I think I've grown so much in the last 2 years. But before we do this, Linda, I just want to promote your post, right? So maybe if we, what hashtag should I put on Instagram that people can catch it? So anyway, I think for me, the thing was I had an idea to bring brands together because I did a campaign called 100 Days of African Fashion and wore different African brands. And then that sort of created a demand for product. And I, yeah.
No, I was gonna say I was sitting with you at Monaco's when you were like, I really have because everyone is doing 100 days of happiness. I don't know, 100 days of blah blah blah. And you're like, mine's
Linda, I created 100 days of something, and then
you. Yes, you did.
everybody um, started doing 100 days of something else. That's the history.
Ah,
Yes,
oh hell! I didn't even know. Okay, so yeah, but then the 100 days of African fashion, I
and
remember that.
yes, and for me, it takes what 30. It takes 90 days to properly convert, even when you're doing a campaign. So that really
Yeah.
was the point to it, right? So 100 days is just the right enough amount of time for you to start something, modify it as you go along, get a few people going and interested. By the time you get to the 100th day, you've converted people, right? And that really was the thing for me with 100 Days of African Fashion, which was the craziest thing I've ever done. I couldn't, I didn't know if I could do it now. I didn't know that I had the patience for it. Huh? But yeah, but then I wore different African brands. In the beginning, it was from my closet. Because I've been doing the Designing Africa show. And so I wore different pieces that I had bought from different designers. And then designers that would write to me and ask me if I could feature their pieces. So it took a life of its own, and I loved doing that. We did
Yeah.
it for 3 years. Yeah, got us in CNN, the BBC, Business and Fashion Listing. But really, I wasn't doing it for fame or to become an influencer or anything, right? I was
Hmm.
doing 100 days to really expose brands. That was a genuine idea behind it. But then, of course, it created a demand for product. People also started to look at Nairobi differently because while we're not necessarily top of mind when people talk about design, people
Yeah.
really look at the Nairobi market as a really strong cosmopolitan market. It's a good business market actually, and I think
Mm.
that also made we managed to spotlight Nairobi in that way. So designers wanted to come to the city, they wanted to produce their brands, and that's maybe the Dynapoti PR coin came from because it was more for how do I come into the local market, who are the stylists, where would I set up shop. We did a lot of that kind of work for people, including pop-ups that I hosted. So
Yeah.
it's a natural thing that I would open a store, but I've never done business before. I don't know that I knew what I was getting into at the time. Um, I
That's
just,
so honest.
yeah, at the time, I thought I could do it. It seemed a grand idea. At the time, to be honest, I didn't even need the money. I was making money from the TV program. So I wasn't
Yeah.
getting it was just like a fulfillment of a journey. That's the reason why I started it. I started the shop. And then I was very clear I wanted to have a less than ordinary store because I've always pushed for the idea that everything could be locally made. So even in
Mm.
the design, everything from the flow to the artwork on the wall, we didn't do wallpaper. I got an artist to come and paint the walls. It was yeah, another fun period of my life. I think
Yeah.
I do projects that make me happy. And yeah, so that's why I got into the store. But the realities of business, it's been the toughest last, what, 18 months for us. We've been 3 months old. The COVID situation hasn't helped it. But even before that, 2019 was a terrible business year, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, so we always sold premium priced clothing, which means maybe the cheapest thing in our store, the most affordable was $130. And then we
Wow.
average at between 180 and $250 for the medium priced pieces, right? But
Mm-hmm.
even if I reflect on that, this is what's difficult about selling African fashion. It's not that people aren't interested in it. It just feels a little bit out of reach, and it's because, well, we've spent $100,000 to bring in a shipment from Nigeria, so we have to spread that cost back. The design is already priced for a premium price point, so there's that too. And then you have to have your commission because you're running a business and you have overheads, right? So I feel like the game here is it's just difficult to do business. I feel it's it, if it's not the excise duty when you bring it in, it's going to be the shipping costs, and that's another thing to talk about. The infrastructure across the
Mm.
country, shipping is a nightmare. So you have to go back to big players like RMX and DHL for shipping. We don't really have a seamless infrastructure.
And my question also, maybe even on this forefront, is, I've seen DHL partner with people in Ethiopia. I mean, they partnered with Fukurta, I remember.
Mm.
I think it would be so great if they partnered with the industry, or even with you right now. I mean, that should be one of their main. It should be on their agenda.
Yeah, they will partner. DHL will partner for an e-commerce store. I think that was the thing.
Mm.
We still are going to pay. So never mind. My shipping costs are the cheapest costs. I can
Yeah.
literally pay $120 to bring in a shipment from South Africa, right? That's the
Okay.
cheapest, right? The shipment is valued at $1,000 in wholesale pricing, right?
Hmm.
My excise duty when I bring in that product is another $1,000. So the problem
Yeah,
comes
you end up paying the same amount. Yeah, which does not make sense.
how many times? Yes, and if we don't do it the right way for us, then we can't claim our money back, or we can knock off against expenses, right? So again, it bites you. Um, but this is the thing: it's so expensive to trade across the continent. It's impossible, right?
To trade
So
across the continent.
yes, especially bringing in things, and then the timeline. So if you're going to use the post office, good luck if it gets here, you know. and that's valuable. It's not like a pair of sneakers that your boyfriend is sending you from the state to the UK. This is a full consignment, but you also want to be in control of when it gets to you. So the postal
Mm,
system is a bit slow, and then people will be like, "Yeah, it's worked for me in the past, but it's too risky, you know." So there's that. So there's the other method of traveling to a country to bring back goods, but that's not sustainable in the long term. It also
of
limits
course not.
market. Yeah, and yeah, so there's just if we could better the trade across the country, it would be better for it in the long run. To be honest, and Africans would buy more African products.
I think it was in 2012 when was it 2012? Yes, it was 2012 when there was a conference in Addis Ababa, and I sat on a panel at the UNECA, and they were talking about trade in Africa, and from a fashion perspective, what the ideas were. And I just remember, and we go back to this same place where we leave this beast in the room, and the elephant, the big, huge elephant in the room was go back to your countries and
Mm.
make sure you push policies. You have to push the policies with your government. If you don't manage to do that, there's no way intra-Africa trade can happen. And this ambassador just shut me down, and he was just like, yeah, we can't help you, so go back to your government, talk to your government, and then come back to us, and then we can see what we can do from there. But if there's across the board in Africa, if there's no movement happening where Diana Opoti and the rest of the Kenyans within the fashion industry are talking to the rest of the designers and fashion industry key leaders in Uganda and Tanzania and whatever, and we all get together and we all at the same time start pushing policies.
I have my own medical practice.
Yeah, certainly
Nothing is going to happen, so why would we be, why why how would these trade barriers be lowered? How do the tariffs come down? It has to work across the whole of the African continent. It can't just be like Kenyans looking for it, so there has to be a little bit of some synergy happening in order to create that type of a platform.
we have platforms coming up, you know.
Mm.
I know there's a platform.
Talk to me.
No. I'm just thinking, top of mind. I know there's a platform called Afrimax, which is supposed to take off. I mean, it's going to be the Amazon for Africa, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it's platforms like that that will push or force governments to change how we do business, right?
Yeah.
Because intra-Africa trade is a very relevant conversation for all of us right now. We cannot
Yeah.
be limited to what the Kenyan market is looking at or like,
Yeah.
oh, Kenya going through this or blah, blah, blah. I feel like intra-Africa trade is the big step. And I think it's players like that who are going to change how governments enforce all those treaty things that they write, but they don't really, they're all in
Yeah.
trade zones, but those are not effective as a border. We should be able to open shop in Tanzania because we're part of, I think they're part of, there's IGAD, there's ECOWAS, the different trade zones, right? So it's those,
Yeah.
it's in platforms like that that are going to sort of push for bigger policies at that level, right? Then we can
Yeah.
focus on making it easy to produce in our countries, and we can push
That
for it.
is true.
Yeah, but then also I think a lot of things are changing. Hiva with their growth funds. Um, I mean, the different growth funds or funds that they give local creatives. I think
Yeah.
over the years as well, and that would be an interesting person to talk to Gashara for you. I mean, just to
Yeah.
understand how the lending has evolved over time, because
Mm.
moving from the grant model more to a business capital or a business capital loan is, I think, what it should go because I think a lot of creatives are used to the freebies, right? You need a grant,
Mm.
do this. So there's no sense of business accountability in the long run. So Yeah, I think Africans, especially Kenyans, are used to asking for aid, but this is just business now. And yes, the government can make it easier for us to run, but then financial institutions also need to take into consideration there's an
Mhm.
actual process of being in fashion, and then make lending possible. And yeah, so yeah, not,
Lots of work to be done. Um, I there's a lot of work to be done. Oh my gosh. And then I'm only imagining now on your side of the store. So by the time you get into your pricing at the
yeah,
store,
so
then
yeah. And the thing is, the pandemic period was interesting for me because it made me rethink. Because before, there was novelty of the fact that we brought in things from different African countries. So that's what made the store different. But I have a bigger sense of what more am I doing for Kenya now and pushing the local economy beyond myself
bravo.
business. Yeah. So for me, I think we've put to rest importing for a while from different
Yeah.
African countries. And even if we continue to do it, it won't be to the same degree. My shop was like an African collective. I think I'm more interested in seeing how to work with local designers right now and artisans because it's important for me to keep that economy going. A lot of designers had to let go of their tailors, and yeah, so it's not been easy for anyone. So I think
Yeah.
that's also opened up my eyes to just how difficult it is. You know, there's a lady who produces our things. The brand is Anasa. They
Hmm.
produce private label, and right now she's so busy because it's one person. It's a nice little boutique production house. So what are other options, right? So if you go down to Nakuru to Bedi, then you're talking about bigger numbers. So where's that sweet spot for production? Because I would think that right now, with so much interest in fashion, um, there would there should be a look. Someone should be looking into production as a business, as an actual business. We don't have enough small scale producers here. I could be wrong, but it's been difficult for us to find someone who can take small minimums because even with Victoria, we have to do about 16 to 20 units. And then now you're thinking about how you're going to sell those pieces, right? So even
Yeah.
those pieces, yeah. And the cost of production is what, between $50 to $70 a piece
Yeah.
for those minimum numbers, right? And then
Of
if you go,
course.
yeah. So this is it's expensive to produce, which means it's going to be expensive for designers. I mean, for people to buy. So when you sell something at when you make it for 70,
Yeah.
the minimum selling price would be 22,000 right? To $20.
You know what is interesting? I was just now that you mentioned Betty and the price, the pricings and the costings, and like you just said, I mean, I remember much earlier you said that a lot of this doesn't work for our Kenyan economy. It actually works more for the international economy, inclusive of the EPZ zone. But I was just thinking about, um, you know, how easy it is on the other side to get your loans, to get, to get the access of funding to even start producing in Africa, in Kenya, made in Africa. It's easy for you to get the resources to produce here. Whereas which is costed obviously in US dollars. And the reason why I'm thinking about this, and I do want to laugh about it because it's such a joke, is because really I'm like, our economy and our local manufacturers are really not interested in the local designers. They're more interested on the international front,
And because of
which
one,
is really sad.
yeah, but Linda, it's two things in that, right? One, our
Yeah.
quantity is too little for them to waste time on. It's just like what Dana wants to make 20 dresses when
Mhm.
it's ready, right? We also don't have seasons. That's another annoying thing, right? So what
Yeah.
informs our decisions? So these companies exist because they know for European winter we have orders from XYZ stores. So we're just a market for business. Like So for resources, right? Yeah, we're a resource market, but we don't necessarily benefit. So we don't have seasons, and nothing informs when or why we're going to make anything. So our factory kind of depends on an unstructured market. And that's why I said I think the problem really starts with our foundation for doing fashion, and that
Mm-hmm.
foundation to be repaired. So some of those people would love to produce for us, but
Mm-hmm.
there's no structure. Even when we don't have fashion week, there's
Mm.
nothing creating a push for demand for people to change over stock or stores don't necessarily even have winter or whatever sales. And I'm not being delusional. Of course, every market will have its season, but our seasons are
Yeah.
very distinct. Whether we call them summer or winter, they're very, very distinct, right? We go into
Yeah.
extremes of cold, into extremes of heat. But nothing informs or drives the fashion industry to produce. So it would be impossible for a production house to put in consideration. So even if I had the minimum quantities that they would allow, maybe they're busy until November because now they're going to have a higher spending season, right? So
Yeah.
uh, yeah, just following how a traditional production market would work. So we wanted to do an active wear line, and so of course we tried to see who could do it. So in Bali, even if we placed our orders today, the
Mm-hmm.
the first and we're ready to go for production, we wouldn't get anything for 4 months. That's a backlog of work.
Wow. Yeah, of course. I mean, the whole industry, it's been turned upside down.
Yeah.
Um,
And and things like that. And but it's not even but Linda, when you think about it as well, this is an industry that works, right? There's the high season for production and then things go into production and then there's quiet time where local players can come maybe produce, right? But we just don't have a calendar for if you
but let
see
me ask you something. Isn't that a good thing that we don't have a calendar, that we're seasonless? Do we have to really have a season?
when you
Sorry, let
think
me just play the devil's advocate here. I mean, like,
it's a
the fact
question.
that we can wear, I can wear my sundress with just a sweater on, throughout the year.
Yes, Linda, that's a great yeah, you see, so I'm not really talking about the lack of a season because of the weather. I'm talking
Hmm.
about the calendar that informs production decisions. That's where we fail out. No, so on the surface, it does. No, 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 no. It's fine.
No, I hear you. I hear you.
That's really what I was
Yeah,
getting at, right? So for me,
yeah,
I'm not obsessed. I think we're blessed with great transseasonal weather, if you can say that, right?
yeah.
Um, so that's great, but it
But the
has a
calendar
very
itself.
yes, even for me. So obviously, Europe and countries that have proper weather patterns, if you can say that, because one has to be rain or snow, whatever, right? But anyway,
Yeah,
in those countries that have very distinct seasons, the seasons inform sales, so that affects retail. It informs the rush to get to new stock and that's from the retail side, right? Because there's
of
new stock,
course. Yeah.
right? In the same way, in the background, it also informs production. So when we're talking about why local producers are producing for the export people are producing,
International. Mm.
it follows the demand. There'll be fashion week and then 6 weeks after fashion week or 4 weeks
Mm.
stores. There's a certain fashion and that's the calendar that I'm referencing, right? And that informs business. So without that demand,
Mm.
the highs of the demand, which are basically all this fashion week, so in 2 weeks, everything that you saw on the runway is going to be in stores or in 4 weeks. Before it was 6 weeks, I think it's shorter now, right?
Yeah.
Before shops stand around stock maybe every 3 months.
Yeah.
And then, yes, now stores like Zara and others are popping have new stock every 10 days even, So
Yeah.
it's what informs. It's that kind of cycle that informs the demand for production, the numbers that people can sort of predetermine and say, I want 1900 units. So that's what I think. That's what I'm referencing. Like I'm talking about that calendar. And
Yeah.
so without the fanciful forefront one, which is the fashion week, the rest
Yeah.
doesn't have can't form a pattern, if that makes sense. And it also
Yeah.
goes back to the last question when you said we don't really have fashion magazines, right? So I know we've got
Yeah.
lots of lovely photographers, incredibly talented photographers and stylists in the market, right? But
Yeah.
it's fashion work, which is great, but it's not enough to sustain um, some titles, right?
Yeah.
And, and that's an international title, which also is a provocation for the
Yeah.
local industry to start creating content for us to consume. We should be able to open fashion magazines and see all these amazing fashion spreads and editorials. But
Is sorry, I was just thinking about like not even in terms of magazine. What is couture still on? I
maybe not
haven't seen it.
maybe not now because of obviously the worst
Yeah.
hit industry would have been publishing, right? Because
Yeah.
advertising has been pulled. So maybe not the last 9 months, but I'm sure I know Olive is up and yeah, but sure should be.
I love this comment. So somebody has just left a comment and said, Africa can have its own seasons, just like Asia. Why keep conforming to Western ideals? We can create our own demands and production cycles. I like that.
Yeah.
Which is, I feel like um, if we were to create, do we need that production and fashion calendar? On your side, you would say yes, which I agree with you. But now I do agree also on creating our own seasonal. I know that Max Aviv, he created the wet season, which I think
Yeah.
was awesome. You know, created a calendar and everybody was like, what is he doing? And then all of this beautiful, you know, everyone started jumping onto his own calendar, which was, you know, because you're in monsoon season, it's raining, but you're still hot as hell outside. So I do feel that, yeah, I guess we definitely do need something
And you know that comment? I love it.
that.
So the thing is, even when we speak about seasons, I'm referencing the fact that the Western world has got its seasons locked down, right? And those seasons inform how they produce. It informs how people consume as well. It informs a sales period. It informs, that's really what I'm referencing. So whatever we call ours, in our store, we're always saying sun rain. Because you can have the most beautiful day in there, and then there'll be this current of rain at 6 to 7 p.m., right? And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
the school. So I agree that yes, let's create our own seasons. Let designers also provoke and say, wet season or monsoon, whatever a creative starts, another tribe will follow, right? And so,
absolutely.
yeah, so I'm all for evolving this rigid systems, but it has to inform in such a way that it has to be done in such a way that it has a ripple effect on the other things that count. And the most important thing is the retail consumption. And here there's just no drive for buying. Like even for us who've had a business for 3 years in a mall, we'll just the most predictable months are June because expatriates are shopping to leave the country, and then
Mhm.
it's November and December because it's a festive season, and then January because winter bunnies are returning. That's that's what are months, right?
Yeah, I mean, and then you have, I want to say maybe the first 2 weeks of January, and then it's dead until the 14th of
And
February,
like,
hoping
are people shopping on 14th of February and not on the
that
1st of 14th?
exactly. So, yeah, the retail space in Kenya is very, very different in terms of even, you know, there's one thing that I've realized that there's people who would rather sit with dead stock in their stores, you know, because do you know what I mean? You'd rather sit with dead stock rather than turn it over so that when people are coming, they see something fresh. Now, if I'm walking into a store and I see the same thing that I saw last year, June, are the same shirts and blah, blah, blah that is there, I'm just like, why? Why comes? Why are you doing this? You can't just sit with dead stock. People need to start getting into that culture of get rid of, change up, look at consumer habits, you know what I mean? And the work. So anyway,
Yeah.
something
No,
interesting about.
that's really funny because I'm like, is it talking about me? But also because designer things are really difficult to put on sale, right?
But that's what
Um,
I'm saying. Imagine that you had, let's think of the stock being a little bit different, right? So
hmm.
not your designer stock per
Like,
se, but
people,
yeah,
this is the whole reason about this conversation, right? It
yeah,
should provoke us to think differently.
yeah,
I like that. Yeah. Secondly, are there things we could do different? The only hesitation we've had in doing ridiculous sales is because we know there's a pattern that people then form in their minds, right?
yeah,
So then you start to think, every November Ghana has a sale. I'm just going to wait until November, right? Or people who
yeah,
bought things at premium
yeah,
would, it's just too personal. The market's too small here. I've had people complain before that, we support you when your brand starts out and releases a new collection, which is really when we need money. When
yeah,
you release something into the store, and that's why the wholesale system works, I guess. So
yeah.
I know that people would be so upset if they had someone bought something for $75 when they got it for like 250.
Of course,
Yeah,
of course, yeah,
I feel in this
yeah.
market, everything is so personal. It's
It
like,
is. But I'm also just realizing, like I said, the spending habits, the retail habits, if you're in the States and Boss is going on sale, you bought that jacket, the blazer at $250 before it came out of season, and now going into into fall, everything's on sale and you end up getting it for $50. I mean, quite frankly, those were the sales I used to wait for. So
hmm,
if you're going to look at any crazy ass consumer, I'm just like, I don't care, fall back. This is, I'm going to wait for it to go on sale. But there's people who are just like, I want it before so that I can hand it down and get the next big thing so that, you know, I just feel like it's just a difference in how you place yourself. I'm a bargain buyer, unfortunately. Um, but
smart.
now in Kenya, that completely changed the way of shopping, because now you're like, wait a second, I know the story behind this brand. I understand where it's coming from. I understand now that it's helping a community. I hear that she's working with women who are spinning the yarn, so once it has that back end story and you really understand it, and cut to where you're talking about traditional dyeing practices, because there's a village that is now doing the dyeing the way they used to do it, back in the day, and it's sustainable. Then you're just like, it's $150. I will get it for $150, as opposed to sitting there and bargaining. Consumer habits end up changing.
Mhm.
And then, yeah,
And I think that's the blessing of being on the continent, that it really matters in a genuine way. It's not like a big American company saying it's working with um, children in somewhere. Like, you really do know that every cent you spend goes back directly. So whether it's the cleaning,
exactly.
selling, yeah. Our stories are more authentic here, I think, or there's a better tracking system for a story. And in most cases, it's usually just true, from
I mean,
fashion.
think about it. Even the international brands that end up coming and producing here, you see Vivienne Westwood,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, she's like, oh, I'm working with these women in Kibra, and they're doing this, and this is how it's made. And by the time guys are buying, even before she goes on sale, she's already sold out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? She's making her bags here. She's doing whatever it is, beadwork done by my Sai people. And this is what happens. This is a reason why the whole made in Africa, made in Kenya, concept in terms of storytelling in the Western world works really hard. But now we need to be our own supporters,
Yeah.
of our local communities.
But I wonder if it's harder to tell your story, you know, to your local audience. It has more novel appeal to like a Western market than it would here. Everyone has a shosho in the village. Like those tear-jerking stories. I wonder if the problem is not so much that Kenyans are cold or Africans want the same to the stories, but more the fact that they do. This is your reality every day. You're taking care of your housekeeper and his kid. He goes to uni and you need a laptop. Like you're
Yeah.
constantly still doing good and supporting a small community. We just don't know how to write it out because it's more duty and part of our societal obligation than it is
Yeah.
about filling in a quarter in ethical and sustainable fashion. So yeah, I wonder if it's harder to sell that narrative here than it is in the West, of course. Because again,
Mm.
with some of these luxury brands, they will
Mhm.
pay minimum wage. And the minimum wage according to Kenyan government is what? 350 a day. What is it? As long there's a minimum wage amount and
It's
150.
it's minimum wages, I think 13,000, somewhere around 13,000, thirteen
Uh-huh.
thousand 500, somewhere there a month, minimum wage.
Yeah. So 13,500 a month is about, let's just do that, right? Because they
Oh,
work,
I stand corrected. Uh-huh.
yeah, these numbers are crazy. No, because, yeah, that's minimum wage actually. Divide by 20 days is 675 per day, but they work what, 5 hours, right? So
Yeah.
basically $700, 70 dollars, right? A day. So as long as you can pay these people minimum wage, you can sell it for $2,000 in the States, right?
Absolute.
Mm. Mm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's
Um,
yeah.
yeah, that a lot of our stuff just needs to change, man. There needs to be a shift. Something has to shift.
I mean, but this
Um,
thing happened in Nigeria. We're just the ones playing with ourselves. Other
I
countries do this stuff. Yeah.
can I you were in touch with Tokyo James, right? So Tokyo, I was talking to him the other. He's a designer from Nigeria. He's brilliant. He's just like an off the cuff person, goes against the grain. And I was telling him about stocking here, and he was just like, "Yeah, but in East Africa, nobody wants to spend money, Linda. Shift over to the West African market, man. Come and make money here." And that really, I was like, really? But it's true. I mean, like the countries that I know where they probably spend money, I know Ugandans spend money on dressing up.
Yeah.
I give it up to Ugandans and Rwandese. I
Mm.
think even Tanzanians. I don't know. We used to get dressed up. We used to get dolled up, and then something happened along the way, and then we just got comfortable, and we started showing up with jeans and a t-shirt when we're going out. I mean, like, I'm just like, what happened? But I remember we used to, I mean, like much younger, and this is just telling my age. Yeah, I'm in my 40s, whatever. But when we used to go to carnivore, it was a whole thing because the whole day you've spent it out and then you've run home, you've taken a shower, you are getting out the really cool clad and threads, whatever you want to call it, and you're going out to look good,
Yeah.
and not hoochie wise, but you're going out to look good. So
No,
nowadays,
yeah, and Linda, it comes back to again culture. You see, we celebrate enough. Tanzanians, Ugandans do. So there's a big spending culture, right? Um,
uh,
so Nigeria, Ghana, all those people, they have celebrations. Every Friday there's something, people shop. Even something as simple as wearing waffle on a Friday makes you want to go and get a new outfit, right?
yeah,
So I didn't know. It's hard for me as a retailer to talk about the Kenyan consumer
Yeah.
But we do get a lot of support from the local market, and they spend.
Yeah.
They're good spenders when they appreciate design. We've got amazing local clients, right? But
Yeah.
generally, the idea is not. I mean, people here don't. The spending culture isn't as big as in Francophone Africa or West Africa or yeah, even Uganda and Tanzania. We're not very dressy, to put it very mildly. And the men are the
Yeah.
ones.
Oh, let's not go there. Wait, guys, I'm really sorry. But you know what? I see the younger guys dressing up so
Yeah,
much more better. I mean, these people, these a couple of older lads out there who, or I should say mature lads. I want to say they're Michael O's who just always look dapper. I've seen a couple of, huh? There's like four guys, guy. Yeah. So, but then, like the younger guys are trying nowadays, they're getting their suits locally made and all that great stuff. So, there's a little bit of a shift, but I want to say the younger guys now, the guys who are like my age. Well, yeah, I'm just let's call a spade a spade. I'll be attacked, but it is what it is, man. It is
Yeah.
what it is.
The windbreaker.
Oh,
Oh my God, Linda. Let's be kind. Let's be kind.
yes, let us be kind. But you know what? I feel like I need a part 2 with you, darling, because Linda must go and make chips for her young little boy. And I feel like our conversation can continue. I would like to invite you to a conversation possibly next week. It would be really interesting to get your insights because I'll be talking to a couple of models. I'll be talking to actually Nelvin
Oh,
Shuma.
and Melvin is a good one because he also has
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. I saw his dress in your store and I was just like, yummy. I love. Anyway, so I'll be talking to Nelvin. I'll be talking to a model called BC, who is South African based in, she's in Cape Town, and she works for Ice Models, and she's also a booker. And there's two other. I'll be talking to Katlego. He just started a magazine during this pandemic called Oak Magazine in South Africa. And we just want to talk about the shift in the industry, what it means for models now, because, where are they starting? I've seen so many management companies in South Africa have shut down, have closed out during this whole pandemic season. So it's, there's a huge shift and we want to find out how, what really is happening in the back end of it. So, if you want to jump in on that conversation, let me know because then we continue to.
I'd love to, but you know who would be really good for you for this one? Can you get?
And I'm
Sam?
looking for Olivia Sang.
Yeah, you can get in 10 seconds. But have you asked Sunny?
Sunny Dolat, yes. Ooh, I'll reach out to him. Yes. That's a good one.
And
Okay.
yeah, that would. I'm game anytime, But I think what was I going to tell you? The modeling industry, that conversation is so important.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. And there is from what I was understanding behind the scenes is that there's a huge shift, and in order for us to represent our Kenyan models, there needs to be like we come in peace type of a movement, So, all right. I really want to thank you for your time, my darling, and I will see you later because I'm gonna do a walk across the road.
Yes, actually. Come, let's have a glass of wine in the garden.
Fantastico. I will see you in a little bit. Let me feed my son and then I'll make my way to you. But everybody else, thank you so much for contributing. I'm really thankful to everybody who is supporting the local fashion business. I want to encourage you to shop and let's change our consumer habits. Maybe find out a little bit of the background behind the brands. Sometimes it really helps in making an informed decision to what you're wearing and why you're wearing it. Yeah, but I'm so appreciative to Diana. By the way, are you dating? Oh, that laugh.
Wine. Aren't you coming for wine?
I'm coming for wine. That laugh is going to tell all. I love you so much. Thank you so much. Please subscribe to my channel on YouTube, which is Into the Core Podcast. I would be so grateful. Let's make a movement. Let's keep the conversations going. I'm going to keep the conversations going. And I'm just thankful. Great content. I love it. Thank you, darling. Mwah.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, darling. Woohoo! Great day.